Our next item is item 11.3, ordinance number 2022-04. Mr. Attorney?
Yes, this item is sponsored by Commissioner Michael Joseph. It's ordinance of City Commission of the City of North Miami Beach, amending Chapter 2, Structure of City Government by specifically amending Article 10, Code of Ethics, to create a new section 2-79.14 entitled Prohibiting Conflict of Interest in Land Use Matters, authorizing City Clerk to transmit the ordinance to the Miami-Dade Commission on Ethics, provide for effective date. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Attorney. We'll go ahead and open public comment at this time for this item. If there's anybody wishing to speak at this time, please come to the podium. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and have a comment amongst us commissioners up here, but we'll go ahead and let Commissioner Joseph, who is sponsoring this item, go ahead and speak on your ordinance. Commissioner Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, this ordinance is just it's just a companion ordinance that that's already the language or the prohibition is already recognized by the state. I wanted to have it incorporated on the local levels in regards from the municipal side, and I sponsor legislation. As you well know, the history in our city has not been all candies, or have not all been of the highest esteem when it comes to public officials or elected officials. When it comes to developments, we've seen it, certain elected officials on this day has been taken out of office as a result of their undue influence. And this piece of legislation is just one aspect of really showing to the community that we're about transparency and rooting out corruption, and that we adhere to a higher standard when it comes to our position as elected officials, and that we're just moving on a very different direction and being transparent and ethical. And I felt this was something that we needed. As you well know, there's a lot of development coming to our city. At the same time, I want the developers to know that they're going to get a fair hand, fair shake, and that we would not, no one from the city, from an elected position or a public official or somebody that works on our staff, will use their position to gum up the works or to help out because they have some type of financial interest. As I pointed out, I got initially, Mr. Mayor, this is already, at the state level. We're just memorializing it here at the local side. If the city attorney wants to add any additional comments, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I think your comments are on point.
Okay.
And if any questions, I'll be ready to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. I don't know if anybody else wishes to speak on this item, but first of all, I'm gonna ask that through the attorney, whatever Commissioner Joseph is alluding to about a city commissioner having a problem or being involved in the past with a local developer, I would like to know what that situation was and when that happened, because I've been here for over 10 years, and on the record, I have not seen anything that a local developer and a commissioner have had a problem with. So I'm just going to go on the record and ask that if something's being said, that a fact is produced. So please, through the attorney's office, if somebody's putting that on the record, I'm going to go ahead and ask for those facts. Secondly, I'm going to respectfully ask that each and every one of my fellow commissioners think very closely about the decision that's being brought forth, the ordinance, and the decision you're going to make today. Because I'm going to tell you right now that, I personally disagree with this ordinance. I will tell you that I think that my fellow commissioner is not being just, and I think is targeting, and I'm just going to be out in the open, is targeting me. And I will tell you that I have been a licensed realtor for over 15 years. I was a licensed realtor before I was a commissioner and then mayor. And I have never in the history of being in this city, nor will I ever do anything unethical or inappropriate. In fact, on one occasion, which has been the only occasion that I was involved in a real estate transaction, I called the Miami-Dade Ethics Department and asked for a recommendation based on the Miami-Dade Ethics Code, just out of pure clarity, transparency, and getting it right. And the Miami-Dade Ethics, Mr. Jose Arroyo, is here tonight, and I'm going to ask if he can to come up and speak if he wishes and deems appropriately on this particular item, and then I will continue to make my following points. But Mr. Arroyo, to your attestment, thank you for being here at our city this evening.
So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Attorney and Mr. City Manager, and my friend, Madam Clerk. Congratulations, ma'am. My name is Jose Arroyo. I'm the Director of the Ethics Commission. My address, we're at Overtown Transit Village North, 701 Northwest, First Court in Miami, Florida. As is often the custom when municipal commissions or boards are considering amendments to their own ethics code, elected officials or sometimes the city attorneys will ask someone from my office to come and serve as a subject matter expert and offer whatever comments we can afford that are requested to assist in the process. And that is why I'm here this evening. In regards to support of the proposal or not support of the proposal, that is a policy decision for the board, and I stay in my lane. I don't offer any comment in support or otherwise unless my own board by resolution has voted to support something. So I can answer questions if you'd like me to answer questions regarding the application of the Miami-Dade County Ethics Code to the conduct that is sought to be prescribed by the ordinance. And I think it's appropriate in as much as if you pass this amendment to your ethics ordinance, interpretation of an enforcement of it will then fall back to my agency and my board. So to your specific comment, Mr. Mayor, I think that you're referring to an ethics opinion that you requested within the last year, and it was a transaction, a real estate transaction where you represented either the seller or the buyer, and the matter then was the development of one of the parcels came before this board.
Over a year ago, yes.
Yeah, you did ask for an opinion, and our advice was that you should abstain from the vote. And that's a published opinion. It's available on our website. I'm happy to provide it to whomever would like to have it. But that is correct. And any other questions that the mayor has, or the vice mayor, or any of the commissioners, and certainly the manager and my colleague at the city attorney's office, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for calling me up, and thank you for engaging with the Ethics Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Rojo. Thank you very much. Folks, I'm going to go on to say that no one has fought harder than me to make sure that the city of North Miami Beach has the highest ethical standards. I myself hold myself to those highest standards, as you've heard here today. No one has a stronger record than me in obtaining ethical and legal opinions when there is even a small possibility of any conflict. As you even saw in our last meeting, how diligent I was in making sure that our charter was enforced properly. This proposed legislation has nothing to do with good ethics or protecting transparency. We already have laws in our books that govern work-related conflicts, and the Ethics Commission is always, as you heard, available for consultation and enforcement. This legislation violates the federal and Florida, in my opinion, the federal and Florida Constitution, and is being put forth for the sole purpose of trying to target perceived political opponents and trying to harm their families. On a day like today, when things are going so well and we're trying to move forward together in harmony, this does not look good and does not sound good. This proposed ordinance tries to target and outlaw one profession as a means to advance political purposes. What is unethical is abusing your power to pass laws to harm the careers of other political opponents. And let me be clear, every property ever purchased by anybody has the potential to come before the city for a permit or a license of some kind. Every business owner that ever comes in front of this city, for any reason whatsoever, may need a lawyer someday, may need an accountant, and may need somebody in the health profession. I'm sure none of you would want to find yourself in this position. Are we going to pass laws that ban lawyers and accountants at the same time that we ban real estate brokers, all because of a property may have the potential to come before the city? I mean, really, folks, think about what is being proposed right now. Let's not waste time. Let's continue with our positive agenda moving forward. This is a violation of the Constitution to target one person, myself, or one profession and try to create a crime. Nothing has been committed here. This ordinance will create legal issues that will cost our taxpayers money and accomplish nothing to improve ethics, because I will pursue this. We need to take care of the people and stop playing games, folks. Enough of the games. Let's treat each other with kindness and respect. This law will never survive a legal challenge. I'm asking today for all of your consideration, as this is my livelihood, and I will continue. And it's been one time in 10 years, I will always divulge, and if I have to recuse myself, I will. But I'm asking for all of your consideration, as this imposes on my livelihood and my profession that I do on a daily basis. I don't know if any of you have any comments, but that's what I have to say.
I do have one question.
Mr. Mayor? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner Joseph. I'm sorry.
Just to clarify, City.
Your second,
Mr.
yeah, well, go ahead.
Mr. City Attorney, this is already at the state level, right?
Correct. I forward you
This is already.
section of Chapter 11237. Basically, a city official cannot enter into any agreement that has recurring conflict with his public duties, and the state law speaks for itself, and the law in Florida is very clear that this body can impose more restrictive ethics ordinance. I mean, as you recall, this body adopted an ordinance that was supposed to be an ethics ordinance to prohibit you guys from leaving
That's to break quorum. Broke quorum.
To broke quorum. So the law in Florida, if this body want to be more restrictive than Miami-Dade County, state of Florida, you can. That's the law. Because, that's your legislative.
Well, I'm not trying to say we're more restrictive. I'm just saying, like, we're just.
Yes,
we're not being more. It's already the law. It's already the law.
Yes.
Like, when you say that this is your livelihood, I'm trying to understand what you mean by that.
Well, let me clarify.
Okay.
Let me clarify factually. And I gave this city commission opinion that was issued by the former ethics director, Joe Centurino. In fact, it was given to the former mayor, George Verhill. And basically, one of the important facts in terms of the opinion was the fact that it was an opinion requested that can he engage in real estate deals in the city of North Miami Beach. And basically, the former ethics commission executive director indicated, yes, if it's not contingent on basically approval of the board or city commission to avoid or prohibit conflict of interest. I gave that opinion. It was written. It's a public record, and to a certain degree, before this matter, you had asked me, I researched the state law, researched the local law, and, you know, from a legislative perspective, it's within your purview to adopt it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just putting on record that if another situation should arise where I am involved, I'll continue to do the right thing as the Department of Ethics has advised me, and is to disclose and recuse myself if I should have that issue in the future. But
Mayor, if this passed, you have to comply with it. I just want to make sure you know.
you are not going to impose on my livelihood and what I do to make a living, and that's my stance. And from what I'm seeing on the Department of Ethics, I am covered as long as I do not get involved in any decision-making process that involves something that or an entity that I am involved with. I will disclose and
Mayor,
recuse myself.
Mr. O'Rourke clearly indicated in his letter to you that this body can impose more restrictive ethics regulation.
Well, I'm just telling you what I'm going to do, and I'm going to follow what I've been given, and you're not going to be moving the goalpost. So,
Well, Mr. O'Rourke will enforce it for
okay,
the city.
very well. If that's the will of this commission, then we'll deal with it, and we'll move on with what I have to do at that time then.
No problem.
Yes. And I would hope that some of my commissioners see through what's going on here, respectfully. Commissioner Kramer?
I have a question. So if this is already a state law, why are we needing to be, this already exists. What good is it that we're repeating what's already out there, which is way above our city?
Well, one of the major benefits now, it brings local enforcement versus enforcement at the Tallahassee level. And basically, the Miami-Dade Commission Ethics have jurisdiction to enforce city ethics code. And the state doesn't have that jurisdiction. And again, as I indicated earlier, the state law language is a general prohibition where this language, you know, provides some clarity in terms of the prohibition that the state has.
Okay, but doesn't the county, so let's now step down, the next level is the county, and this is already in the books. I mean, this is already something that prohibits any elected official, you know, through the county. They have jurisdiction. So why are we doing what the county already does?
I read, the county conflict of interest regulation basically it's not as specific as the state, and it's not specific as this proposed ordinance.
Commissioner Kramer, what Commissioner Joseph is basically trying to do, and from what I'm understanding, is he's basically trying to prohibit me from basically, or any realtor in the future, as long as this ordinance is in place, from being able to recuse myself.
Mayor, it applies to every single employee of the city.
employee.
Okay,
Every
I have a
single.
question. Let me,
Would you allow us to have a conversation?
I just want to make it clear, it's not you, it's everybody.
Okay, and if I need
why are
clearance,
you getting upset with him? I mean,
Good.
When did I?
no, not you. I mean, just
I'm not
stop.
upset. I'm just
Everybody, but
clarifying
it sounds,
the law.
it sounds antagonistic
It sure
to me.
does.
Me?
So
Not at all.
it does. You'll
Not at
listen
all.
to it later, but that's how I hear it. You know, we all hear things different. But let me ask you this. If, you know, he could, so in other words, you're saying he can't even do any business and not recruit. That is ridiculous. I mean, he is allowed to continue with his livelihood, as any realtor should be able to, as long as he would recuse himself. Are you saying this is, I want to make sure one of you is saying this
Let me make it
exactly right,
clear.
because I'm not a lawyer.
Let me make it clear.
hold on, before you make anything clear, I'll recognize you in a moment. Mr. Arrojo, can you please step up for clarity? You are the director of the Department of Ethics, and shed some light on what's being discussed here, because at the end of the day, it's going to fall on you to make that decision.
So, sure, if I can answer a specific question, I'm
Please.
happy to answer a specific question. Your city attorney and I spoke briefly, but we haven't discussed this at any great length. So I believe that what Mr. Atanat is referring to at the state level is the prohibition on an elected official, or really any public employee, including myself, from engaging in outside employment that is going to create a recurring conflict of interest, such that that recurring conflict of interest impacts on the public official's ability to discharge their public duties. I think that's what Mr. Atanat was.
That's a section.
So that exists under state law. It also exists under the county ethics code. So the county ethics code has, my agency has interpreted the conflicting employment provisions under the county ethics code in the same manner. So that would apply to anyone, whether it's a lawyer or any profession. If an elected official in Miami-Dade County, at the county level or at the municipal level, an elected official or a government employee like myself, if we have outside employment and it creates a recurring conflict of interest such that you're unable to discharge the duties of your office or the duties of your employment, then an opinion would issue that would say, well, you really can't do that. It violates the county ethics code, and it could subject you to an ethics complaint. I think Mr. Atanat and I are saying the same thing. I think we're saying the same thing.
And one of the things that you clearly
consider reoccurring a one time, or maybe reoccurring, I would think is something that you're bringing forth every month. I mean, this has only happened one time in the past, and what the future may bring. I mean, this is impeding on my livelihood. If I'm recusing myself and I'm not getting involved in any decision-making process, I think I'm following the law. Am I not?
Well, to be clear, I mean, recurring means recurring, right? I think that everyone would agree that a one-time matter, happening a year would not be recurring. What exactly recurring would mean? In my view, it would mean multiple occasions, such that it interferes with an elected official's overall duties.
Very good.
Mr. Roy, but you clearly indicated your opinion.
Let me finish. I'm talking to him.
No, I just want to make sure.
Just hold on one second, Mr. Attorney.
Okay.
I will gladly give you your respective time.
Sure.
I just want to make sure, Mr. Rojo, the question I asked you about what reoccurring means, you've answered to me. And that's what I understand. Now, that being said, Mr. Attorney.
Mr. Roy, you issue your opinion at 5 o'clock today or whatever time to Deputy State Attorney Regine Monsignor on this issue. I received the opinion just now. You clearly indicated that this city commission can adopt more restricted ethics measures. I'll give you, for example, in Sunny Isles Beach, there was a city official who would basically purchase condos.
Mr. Atanat,
let me finish, please. Let me finish, Mr. Roy.
Don't interrupt the
Mr. Roy, let me finish.
No, let him finish.
I'm speaking.
No, of course.
I'm speaking.
Who's running the meeting here?
I'm supposed to be running the meeting.
So in Sunny Isles Beach, there was an elected official who's purchasing condo units and pre-construction prices, and then subsequently vote on the zoning matter. And he did it one time. And that body, because of that conduct, said, you know what? This not only is a conflict of interest, but appears a conflict of interest, and passed legislation to prohibit any city official, not just the elected official, from purchasing a condo until a certificate of occupancy is issued. So based on your opinion today, you made it clear that this body has the legislative authority to adopt more restricted ethics regulation, and which is doing now.
So if I may,
Please,
through the chair, what I was going to say is that Mr. Atanat and I agree on that point, because it's a black letter law statement. So clearly, just like the Board of County Commissioners, can promulgate an ethics provision that is more restricted than Florida statute, any municipal board can promulgate an ethics provision in their own municipal code that's more restricted than the county code. Yeah, and I apologize. I was going to cut you off because, yeah, we clearly agree on that. It's a black letter law statement. It is within this board's, policy discretion. If you want to pass something more restrictive, you can pass something more restrictive.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't get a chance to speak out. You've gone to Commissioner Kramer like at least 3 times already.
Well, you took 2 bites at the apple already.
She's taken 3.
I
Mr. Mayor,
haven't gone to her.
no, but you have. She's going back and forth. She asked several times. But I just want to put on the record. I want to make a motion to call the vote, Mr. Mayor.
We all haven't asked a question, so you need to hold on.
I'm not done. I have one more question. One.
Go ahead and finish your last
I just
question.
want to know, what other cities, is there a lot of cities that do this?
There's a lot of cities that have more restricted ethics provision than the county.
No. This particular item.
With respect to zoning, I can tell you, I haven't researched it at depth, but cities have taken more restricted positions relating to development because development generally has some association with corruption.
Mr. Mayor, I had asked to be recognized.
Commissioner Flerman, please.
And I know that Commissioner Joseph, after me, if you want to recognize him, you can for his motion to call.
Well, he always wants a motion, so.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad that Mr. Arroyo is here to lend some clarity and our city attorney to kind of come together on what we can and can't do. In all honesty, I think this is a blanket type of an ordinance, not specifically to you, although you are the only one on this dais involved in as a realtor on certain deals. But what I will say is to this point is that, no matter who it is, I think the recusal is one thing, but advancing a project through the process, making comments on it, showing where you stand on an issue, only to walk away when the vote is about to be taken, in my eyes, is still not above board. And so I wanted to know what your opinion is on that. That's number one, to Mr. Arroyo and to our city attorney. And then number two, there are certain deals that I believe, are where a developer's purchasing land or purchasing a building, and they know that their intent is to knock it down and build a development. So my question is, are there particular deals where there would be documented in black and white, that this property is being purchased for the purposes of development, so that anyone who is involved in that transaction has a clear understanding that it would be a conflict of interest at that point. So does that happen? Is that typical? Have we seen that as part of our as part of what happens with development deals in this city? So those are the 2 questions I have.
So if I may, Commissioner Floribant, so I agree with you in as much as our agency has issued opinions, not only to realtors, but really issued more, the vast majority of the opinions that we've issued on this point are really to attorneys. And so clearly, the prohibitions under the county ethics code would extend not only to discussion and consideration of the vote, but would extend to the elected official, or again, to the elected official or to the local official that's not elected, using their position to influence directly or indirectly any matter, along the way. It's not like the conflict of interest only exists for the vote. For elected officials, our opinions are usually for the vote because that's where it is. But I mean, for example, if it were this, your city attorney or your city manager, your zoning director that was somehow involved in outside employment in a transaction, the ethics code would prohibit their involvement directly or indirectly at any point along the way. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, but as an elected official, I would say, it's my perception that not only my vote is where a conflict would be. If I'm making calls on behalf of, or speaking to management on behalf of, or taking stances on issues during the process, whether it's planning and zoning, whether it's whatever that trajectory of the project is, it means something as an elected official, right, when we do those things. Agreed. And or when we meet with people.
Agreed.
Lobbyists come and meet with us, developers meet with us. So to be involved in the entire process, to come up and have discussion that may or may not sway your colleagues one way or another, and then literally when a vote is about to be called, that basically eliminates any conflict of interest. To me, it doesn't make sense. So can you clarify?
Yeah, and I can, and thank you for the question. And that's why, the opinions that we usually issue, speak not only to the vote, but also refer to other sections in the Code of Ethics that would prescribe, and I'm going to use the covered person, just whether it's an elected official or not, that would prescribe not only the vote, but would prescribe using your position, right, to influence the process anywhere along the way. So if I were retained, I'm going to use myself as an example. So if I were retained, in outside employment, I don't engage. But if I did, if I were hired by a client in outside employment, right, I think that the Code of Ethics would prohibit me from using my public position to engage at any point along the way. Right, so I think that the same would go for an elected official, right? So if the elected official is a lawyer or a realtor, whatever the case may be, and they're retained by a client, our position would be, listen, if you're retained by a client and the subject matter of that retainer is going to come before a board, it's going to be presented to a department director or something like that, you should not involve yourself directly or indirectly at all at any point during the process. And those are the types of opinions that we give to elected officials that are lawyers. And over the last couple of years, we provided them to elected officials that are lawyers in the city of Miami a couple of times, in the city of Hialeah. And it's the same thing, right? Our recommendation is not only that you not participate in the vote, but that you not use your position to influence the process at any point along the way, because that could run afoul of the conflict of interest.
Just in my last bite, Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, what about after a vote? So let's say you don't take any part in any sale or any, anything like that as a realtor or anything like that. What about voting on an issue and then becoming a realtor for a particular project afterwards? Let's say if it's rental units and those rental units have to be rented out. What about being the associate for that on that side of the deal? Have you ever issued opinions related to that?
Commissioner Florimont, as I'm standing here right now, I really don't have any recollection of me personally being involved in issuing an opinion like that, or lawyers on my staff doing it. Certainly not in the last 4 years that I can think of. So I apologize. I mean, I'm happy to speak to Mr. Otnot, sometime after the meeting if that's an issue. But
I just wanted to know if that was in fact something that would be considered.
Not that I'm familiar with.
Okay,
no.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions before we entertain the motion? You've already.
So we only did a motion, we didn't second it, correct?
Correct.
Is there any way to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Commissioner John, you had a.
Yes, I just wanted to say hi because we usually see you in ethics trainings. So to have you here in the city of North Miami Beach means a lot. But I wanted to also kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Joseph mentioned. Well, one of the previous resolutions that he mentioned about frivolous ethics complaints, right? And so we're kind of going through a similar thing with this. So the key that I'm seeing here is conflict of interest. So if there isn't a conflict of interest, will this be an ethics issue?
So to be clear, once you pass the ordinance, then my agency and me in my capacity to a certain degree have the authority, have the jurisdiction and the authority to interpret it and offer opinions. It hasn't been passed yet, so I want to stay within my lane. So, I mean, and your city attorney can advise you, more, very competently on what the language means. The way that I read the ordinance as proposed, it establishes kind of a per se conflict of interest and says that, that if you are, I don't know what the descriptions are, if you're a real estate broker, and then there's a couple of other categories of references. If you are involved representing someone in that transaction, right? And a condition of the sale is that the parcel is going to be presented for development. It's kind of, it seems to me, and again, I defer to Mr. Otnot, it seems to me that you are establishing a per se conflict of interest. You're saying, if you have one of these professions and you are involved in this type of transaction, you may not be compensated You may not receive compensation for that engagement. So I would describe it this way, and again, I defer to your city attorney. You're kind of establishing a per se conflict of interest.
But is that conflict of interest a conflict of interest? What you're just explaining right now?
Well, I mean, if I may, I mean, if someone were engaged in that transaction and this ordinance didn't exist, your municipal ordinance didn't exist, right? And they asked for guidance, what we would say is we would recommend that if you are engaged in that type of transaction, that you should not involve yourself directly or indirectly in anything that the city is involved in, you know, from the get-go to the vote. You certainly shouldn't vote on it, and you should not use your position to influence the process. That's the opinion that we have given. Actually, that's the opinion that we did provide the mayor that when he reached out to us last week. So in absence of the ordinance, that would be the opinion that we would issue. I hope that answers your question, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
And I thank her for asking that, because it answered the question, another question I had. So this does not preclude anyone. I know, Mr. Mayor, with all due respect to your profession, you know, we're mentioning you, but doesn't preclude someone from being involved in a real estate transaction. It precludes them from creating a conflict of interest by walking this through to the point of vote. That's where the conflict is created. So if anyone wants to sell real estate, you want to go and sell a property, and it's that sale, you know, it's going to become a development, then you know what? You don't get involved in anything on the city side. You don't comment on it, you don't speak on it, you don't walk it through, you don't help on the city side, and then get to the point of vote, and then you walk away. So I agree with what you're saying. I think that makes sense.
With all respect, Commissioner, I have never and will never, and because I understand this clearly, involve myself in influencing or going to any of department heads or anybody to ask for the moving forward of any item, just for the simple fact that I am a realtor in the sale of a property. That means I'm working a deal between a buyer and a seller. I'm not involved in the transaction or influencing anybody here in the city.
Then exactly. So that means you shouldn't have an issue with this ordinance, because you won't do that.
Well,
you're above board.
It would preclude me from being able to be involved in any real estate transaction. But if I am involved in it, I would recuse and I would disclose as I did once in the past. And I did not in any way, shape, or form break any law or influence or move to come here and do anything unethical. So there's no reason to even visit this when there's already a legislation, there's already something in place with the Miami-Dade ethics. And if anything is done wrong, there is a penalty to pay for that.
Mr. Mayor, honestly, if this was specifically, if this was specifically targeting you, if I really felt that this was going to be something that would preclude you from doing business, I wouldn't support it. But that's not what the case is here.
It is exactly what the case is here. It is exactly what the case is here.
May I ask, is there any way to table this for a much broader discussion to, I can table it, can I not?
It's up to you.
I know, but you're shaking like, no, I can't.
No, I'm not shaking because of that.
Okay. So, you know, because I just feel that, look, I totally appreciate above board. We all know that. But I'm concerned because I know there's already laws on the table with ethics. The mayor is concerned that whether it's him or other real estate realtors that this is stopping them from doing a certain amount of business, and I can't vote on this. That's why I want to table it, because I'm not sure that I'm really understanding this to the degree in which it seems to be affecting the mayor in his capacity as a businessman in the real estate world. So I just...
Let me add for clarification. It does not preclude the mayor or any other city official from acting as a real estate broker, agent on any private deals in the city of North Miami Beach unless that deal is contingent on approval of this body or the zoning board. He can be an agent on a residential property that has no business coming before the commission. He can be an agent on a commercial property, shopping center, that's not subject or contingent to this body approval. From my experience, I spent over 20 years in development in Sunny Isles Beach. I can tell you, when a developer purchases a property, generally they will have a clause in that contract that this sale will not close unless there's a commission zoning approval on site development. So this ordinance basically create a bright line with respect to land use matters that you don't have to declare a conflict. You shouldn't be involved in it from day one. That if it's coming before the commission for review, in fact, I would believe all city officials would love that. Now you can vote. You don't have to declare a conflict. You can vote on the matter with no prohibition because you didn't get involved in that deal. So, Mr. Snow?
That is what's not fair. That is what's not fair because I do have the right to be involved in the deal because it is my profession. And if I come up here and I recuse myself, I'm not asking for anybody's favor. I'm disclosing, like I've done in the past, once before. Once before. So it's not even reoccurring, okay? So, you know, and I'll go again. Obviously, there's a reason why Commissioner Joseph is bringing this up. There's only one reason why, and all of us here are very smart. We weren't born yesterday. So, listen, I'm not going to rehash this out. All of you know what you're doing here, and this is targeting me, because obviously there's no other profession being mentioned here but a realtor. So he wants to have a field day with me, okay? And that's very disrespectful to anybody that would support this item. So I'm just asking for the same collegiate respect from the rest of my colleagues. I have never broken the law. I've always been fully transparent, and I've always disclosed, and I've always recused myself. And that's what I will continue to do moving forward. Mr. Joseph, you made a motion. I'll second it.
I haven't spoken.
Go ahead. Then,
Well, actually, Commissioner Joseph was before me.
No, I'll wait for you to continue.
All right, thank you. All right, so I just want to understand this a little better. Yesterday, I'm going to use the mayor as an example. If the mayor was involved in a real estate deal that involved something we were going to vote on, he would recluse himself, and that's it.
You talking about yesterday?
Yesterday. If this, forget today existed,
okay.
Yesterday. Now, let's say that this passes. Tomorrow, the mayor gets involved in that same deal or similar. What happens? Does he recluse himself or?
No, if that deal is contingent on approval of this body or the zoning board, any other board, the elected official, including the mayor, staff also, city attorney, city manager, cannot be involved in that deal. There's a black line.
So, and what happens if they?
Well, then he would be subject to the ethics fines, which is $1,000
Okay,
violation.
but they can be involved in the deal if it doesn't say that, what you just said, that it's contingent.
Yes. If let's take a real estate shopping center, which we have several in North Miami Beach. Some of these real estate shopping centers never go forward with redevelopment. They just a complete transaction where there's no developers coming in to come within a time period to develop. It's just he can be involved in that. There's nothing that prohibits him from being involved on a matter that is not coming before this board as a contingency. There's nothing in this law prohibiting
So
it.
the only time it applies if it's contingent
Correct.
upon, okay. Has that ever happened to you, that you've been involved in something that's been contingent?
It's not,
Yeah, it's been, and yes, and I have disclosed
Okay.
that I am part of I was a realtor in the transaction, and I recused myself from voting, and therefore the rest of the body voted on the item, and that was it. I don't talk to anybody, I don't ask anybody for favors, I don't go to the city manager, I don't go to the city attorney, I stay in my lane, and that is my job.
So
I
those-
disclose and I recuse myself.
Okay.
That is what's right now, the law with the Miami-Dade ethics, and I called and I got that recommendation.
Okay. And you've been a mayor, an elected official, how long?
Approximately since 2013, so
9
figure
years.
about 9, almost 10 years.
So
And,
in 9 years, one time, I mean, that's not so bad. Okay, so I'm looking at something else that's on here about that none of us could buy any property until to purchase condominium units prior to the issuance of a CO.
that's not on there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Whereas city officials to purchase condominium units prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy for a development project creates a conflict of interest, especially where the development project may be subject to additional regulatory review.
Okay, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but basically,
But you should know that, Mr. Attorney.
no.
You drafted it.
Mayor,
No, you drafted it, didn't you?
Mayor,
Okay,
Did you or did
that's
you
my
not draft it?
question.
Mayor.
Okay, that wasn't my
I'm not
question.
going
Yeah, there you go again,
Well-
repeating mayor.
I'm not-
You're like a broken record.
Listen.
Answer the question.
listen.
That's not
listening.
You
that's
just
not
need to
my
be
question.
professional.
My question is,
Yes,
My
this
question
is similar to the Sunny Isles Beach prohibition. Basically, again, if an elected official, city manager, city employee, that basically to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest or conflict of interest per se, you cannot buy condo units until the matter is issued a certificate of occupancy.
okay, so look, I'm 99.99% sure I'm never going to buy a condo and live in it, but I'm just going to use myself as an example. Like, I'm an empty nester in a house. Something comes up in front of us, and I say to my husband, wow, it's really nice, it's really pretty, it's on the water, let's move there. So now I can't buy there. Now, and I'm just using myself as an example, but trust me, I'm never moving to a condo. But now I can't buy there because of this,
No, you can buy there, and,
but I can't buy it when it's a good deal prior to the CO.
well, because prior to the certificate of occupancy, that condo is still subject to review by this city, this commission. They can come back and ask for a site plan modification. Then if you buy that unit during that period, now you have a recusal issue.
Now, could I have bought it prior to this? If this resolution passes, ordinance passes?
You can buy it if, obviously, it would raise a conflict of interest if you vote on a condo that's.
And then I would have just reclused myself.
That's generally.
If this resolution passes, you cannot do it. If it doesn't pass, then you could recuse yourself and buy your apartment if that's what you wanted to do.
Okay, and this also applies to any family member.
Yeah, it extends to the family members.
No, if it's a family member who's using it as a straw buyer, can do it.
It's a family member.
Okay, if the family member just buying it on his own, not using it as a straw buyer for the elected official, city official, it's not an issue. It's when that family member is being used as a straw buyer for a city official, elected official. So it's not, just want to emphasize, it is the entire employee base of the city. It's not just elected official. It's basically the entire employee base, including elected officials, charter officers, city clerk. So this is a prohibition.
I mean,
And including the building official. You want your building official to be buying units that he has to review for permits?
I'm basically talking about real estate.
No, I'm just as a policy, include the building
I
official.
mean,
You can include whatever you want.
I wish this was, when there was a certain city official whose wife was working for a developer, I wish this would have been in place. But what about working? Can we?
What's the question?
No, you know what, I'll do that some other time. All right, I have no other questions, thank you.
Commissioner Villard, did you have a question? No?
No, I don't.
Anybody else? Okay, there's a motion that was made by Commissioner Joseph. I don't know if anybody wants to entertain and second that. I'm not.
Can I make a motion
You can?
You have a
to table
motion?
this? Well, nobody seconded it. Can I?
I'll just second it.
Table?
I'll second it.
What?
You want to make a motion?
I made a motion to table.
You have a motion, he's
Well,
second right here.
She's making a motion.
No, Mayor, he has a motion, she seconded.
Nobody said anything.
She did.
But she said she's making a
Mayor,
motion.
he made a motion, he seconded.
I'm
Mayor,
the chair.
Mayor,
I
heard her make a
spoke
motion.
first,
No,
and nobody
Mayor,
answered, and nobody seconded it, so I made a
No,
motion to
honestly,
table
no,
it.
there was not
want
an
more
allowance
time
of
for
time
this.
for people to respond before you spoke, Commissioner Kramer.
Usually, come on, usually people on this dais jump at the second.
Well, you have
and
a
it was
second.
quiet, so
Yeah,
I
well,
went
we have a
through
second.
and said, I want to table it. So let's just do Robert's
Mayor,
Rules of Order.
Mayor.
What are the rules?
We have a motion and a
There's a
second.
motion,
All
and
right.
there's a second.
I can't, okay.
Can we call the vote, please?
No, we can entertain. She.
But I was prior to her.
Mayor,
Yeah, but you didn't have a
Commissioner.
second.
yes, you did.
You didn't
Yes,
have a second.
no, yes.
There was no second, so I asked for a motion to
Mayor,
table
She
it.
has a
There was a
motion.
second, there was a second.
She has a motion.
Mayor, there was a
There
second.
was a second.
There wasn't,
The motion was already made.
There was no motion.
There was a second, and you
There was-
didn't.
there
you-
was no
Mayor,
second. There
Mayor,
was no
you did
second.
not state on record that the motion died because of lack of second. There was a second. You did not state that on record.
Can we call the vote, Mr.
There
Mayor?
was nothing. so
Mayor, you
spoke
did
up.
not state on the record that the motion died for lack of second. There was a second.
Listen, no problem, Mr. Attorney. Go ahead and play your hardball if that's what you want to do. You know what? Let me keep my comments to myself. Madam Commissioner, I'll respect your second, so we have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion on the matter?
I'm just going to say that I'm not comfortable voting on this till I have a lot more information. I want to be sure we're doing the right thing, and it could be the right thing, but maybe there's items in here that can be looked at differently. I don't feel comfortable, and too bad Commissioner Smith isn't up here to talk.
This is a first reading.
Yeah, it's the first reading.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
It's the first reading.
It's a first reading, but it shouldn't even be past this first reading, and I would hope all of you understand what you're doing here today. If you're voting yes to accept this ordinance. If you're voting no, you're voting it down. Madam Clerk, it's a roll call.
Commissioner Florimon,
Yes.
Commissioner Jean,
Yes.
Commissioner Joseph,
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer,
Not right now, no.
Commissioner Villard,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Smuckler,
Yes.
Mayor Anthony Defillipo.
No.
The motion passes 5-2. Excuse me.
Okay, it's motion is seconded. Madam Clerk, go ahead and call the vote.
The voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes 6-0.
6.
Yeah, we were missing Commissioner Joseph. He was.
I said aye, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
You were
Thank you,
not
Madam
in your
Clerk.
chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I said aye. Thank you.
I didn't recognize anybody.
You didn't have to
in your chair.
recognize me. It was a vote. Voice vote.
You weren't in your chair, sir.
Right there, Mr.
Heard him.
I sat down. Aye.
Okay. Then you want to recognize him? Mr. Attorney?
You are the chair.
I did hear him.
No, but you like to give your opinion, so why don't you go ahead and tell me, since you run the show, big
Mr.
boy?
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you for the compliment.
Okay, so the attorney says yes, so it's 7-0.